Joe Vardon from The Athletic. He's been covering Team USA over in Paris during the Summer Olympics. Joe, if I was sitting next to you with 7 minutes to go and Team USA was down 11, what would you be saying?
Well, I wouldn't be saying anything because I had my head buried in the laptop writing about how this collection of all-time legendary NBA greats, players and coaches had collectively failed, and that USA basketball was heading into a extended period of soul searching with the LA Olympics coming up and them not being defending champions. That was the scenario, guys. They were dominated. Even when they made that little push there in the third quarter to cut it to 6, it was right back up to 15 with 30 seconds left. Ridiculous 4-point play. So what happened from the 7-minute mark in was once in a lifetime type stuff.
Yeah, that's what I wonder. It's nice to applaud them that they did come back, but how did they get down 17 in the first place?
Yeah, I think it's a lesson. I don't mean to go on too long here, but I do think what happened last night is a lesson for anyone who's not paying attention about how much the game has changed. And it answered a question that we didn't have an answer to coming into these Olympics, which is, can the USA continue to just flood the talent or the court with talent and guarantee themselves a gold medal? The answer is no. They can't do that anymore. Now, they may very well win tomorrow night. But what we learned is that a team built around just one superstar with one competent shooter in Bogey Bogdanovic, and then role players who are solid EuroLeague role players, they can dictate the pace of play against anybody. And so what we saw last night, I believe, was awesome. And I think you were alluding to it at the top, because you see these four former MVPs, they're on the court together, and they had to do this. They all had to play as well as they could possibly play to beat Serbia. And I think that is a positive defining moment for them and for the game at large, because it does speak to how far the rest of the world has come.
Who was going to take the heat if Team USA had lost?
You hit it. You were right on the money there. I mean, Kerr gets ripped every day. He gets ripped for not playing Tatum, which that one kind of I'm bewildered by it. But Steve gets ripped all the time. They didn't win at the World Cup last year either. So his path is very similar to Popovich's, great all-time NBA coach. Had it hard with Team USA. And then you said LeBron. I mean, yeah, like I had it in the story, he was headed for 2 bronze medals. That's not a thing for USA basketball. And that was going to be hung on him. And now he's got a chance for 3 golds, which is more than Michael. It's all-time legendary stuff, and it was this close to going the other way.
And you look at these 3 players. I'm not putting Embiid in there, but like we can. But I'm talking, what LeBron does. He's a unicorn. Nobody's been like KD, and nobody's like Steph Curry. And you're seeing this unfold, but you're also seeing it unfold, and you're going, they have to be who they are to knock off Serbia, which, what you're saying is a credit to basketball around the world. And I always worry about these guys who are fringe NBA players or maybe couldn't get into the NBA. This is their moment to show that they can play. And I don't know, the French team, like, how dangerous are they going into this game after we just saw this close game?
So there's a lot to discuss with this. And I want to start with it. I was here in January for 10 days. I did a bunch of stuff. The Cavs and Nets were here. And since I knew I would be covering the Olympics and knew I was working on some international stories, I thought I'd come out here with them. And so in the process of all the reporting, I got a chance to sit down with Vincent Collet, who is the head coach for France. And he was Wembanyama's coach here with the Paris Metropolitans for that year before he was drafted in the NBA. And by French rule, if you're coaching the national team at the Olympics, you can't coach that year in the French league. So Coach Collette was off for a year. And he said he'd been watching the NBA every night because of Wemby. And then before those games, because they're on so late here, he was watching the EuroLeague. And he said that he thinks there are at least four EuroLeague teams that could beat the Detroit Pistons and the Washington Wizards. His point is that that's how far the talent has come here in Europe, to where it's getting a lot closer to soccer, where, like, yes, we have the Premier League, but then there's also great leagues in France and in Spain and, whatever the case. Like, there are teams and there are players outside of the main sport playing country that can really compete. And so that's what happened with Serbia. And now you get to France and you look at their roster and it's got Wemby. And so you think, okay, like, he's their guy. Well, their two best players, and I'm sorry, like, the one I know because he used to play for the Celtics. The other guy, his name escapes me. He looks like in the face kind of like our Darren Williams. But he's a guard and he's physical and he's a EuroLeague player. But that doesn't mean what it used to. So, like, the French do not have the talent that the United States has. They should be especially weak at the guard positions, but they have dictated the pace of play against two teams that are loaded with NBA talent, and they beat them both. Canada, to me, was always the team that could really scare the U.S. because they have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's as good as any player in the NBA. And then they had a bunch of role players who are all NBA level guys. They took care of Canada. Then you got Germany, defending World Cup champ. Dennis Schroeder dictates the pace of play in FIBA. He's got the Wagner brothers, Tice, a couple other guys. France just out physicaled them. They shouldn't be able to do that to the US. They shouldn't be able to keep up with the pace that LeBron and Steph set. But if they do, then the crowd gets involved and it becomes another nervy moment. So we'll see if the U.S. can avoid getting into France's style of play.
We're talking to Joe Vardon, joining us from Paris. He's NBA senior writer for The Athletic, covering the Summer Olympics. How entertaining is the Joel Embiid versus France story to you?
I mean, I've written it, I don't know, 5 times now. Like, my reporting on this, Dan, goes all the way back to, I was telling you, in January. One of the stories I came back with is that the French Federation, on the record, and they had, like, receipts. They said that they helped him get a French passport because he told them to, because he wanted to play for them. And they were explicit about this. So it goes back at least that far, that like the French, the Basketball Federation, the government, President Macron called Embiid to try to recruit him after the passport had been granted. And then the fans at large, like, they know all this stuff. And so it's been fascinating to me to see their reaction to him, but then watch sort of the evolution of Joel through this. He was startled the first game. He was also, like, really sick, which we didn't know until recently. Grant Hill had told me that Joel was so sick that day that he had to drive up the day of the game from Paris to Lille separately. But he seemed to be taken back by the boos. And then his teammates got his back and started waving the boos on with him. And then he started to shift his commentary about what was going on. At one point, he said he doesn't care if they boo. Then he said, well, I'm an American, and I'm always going to play for Team USA. And then he said he hinted strongly that the USA players wanted him and the French players didn't. And now he said, well, I love France, and I was always going to play for Cameroon if they qualified for the Olympics, but since they didn't, I picked the U.S. So to me, what's been fun has been the evolution of the saga, instead of just, like, Joel making the one inappropriate gesture and fans yelling back at him. Like, I don't care as much about that, but I've been intrigued to watch Embiid handle all this.
But this isn't quid pro quo that France will get you a passport, but we'll get you a passport, but you must play for it. Is that what you think happened here?
No, it was more like, I mean, the recruitment goes back years, by Boris Diaw. We know him well in the U.S., and the French Federation president, who we would not know in the U.S. But they were taking meetings with Joel like in 2021, even to gauge his interest. And the reason why is for years before that, he had stated in several French publications that he had interest in doing this. So they recruit him and they recruit him, and according to them, they had gotten him to the point where he said, "Okay, I am going to play." And they said, "Well, you need to be a French citizen to be on the team." And according to them, he said, "Okay, get me a passport." Joel, through a spokesman, has denied this, has denied the quid pro quo. But it's hard to it's hard to believe that this isn't at least very close to true, especially because they're explicit. The French Federation guys, they're explicit in that, like, this is not done in France. They are always playing guys who just are from this country, period. Joel has never lived there. And that they were making an exception for a truly great player who had at the time wanted to do it. So I think that's all real. I do. And I think that, Joel's evolution from where he was and wanting to play for them and then ultimately picking the U.S., is a fascinating saga too.
Finish this sentence. If Team USA loses to France this weekend, ...
It's a failure. And it's a total reset. And that is, unfortunately, I just got through talking to you this beautiful state of where we are as a basketball playing universe. And I believe all that. I do. But at the same time, we haven't cleared that bar yet where anything other than gold is acceptable for USA. And the fact remains, Dan, this is a team with 11 All-Stars on it. They've never done that before. And it is LeBron and it is KD and Steph all together with Embiid. This team has to win. The 28 team, with the Olympics being in LA, the world's going to be even better. France, like, as we know, we had Victor and Koulibaly drafted 2 years ago or last year, and then this summer we had 4 French guys picked in the top round of the NBA draft, and none of them are on this team. So France is going to be great for a while, but the pressure will still be there in LA. I think once we get past LA, it's going to be a different discussion, and we're going to look at it the way we do like a soccer World Cup or a soccer Olympics, where there are a number of countries that can win, regardless of who's sent. But for now, all that stuff aside, the U.S. has to get it done tomorrow.
Great stuff, Joe. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Anytime, Dan. You know that.
That's Joe Vardon, senior NBA writer for The Athletic, covering Team USA at the Summer Olympics.